It's-
There we
Okay,
go.
good. Yay. So good afternoon, everyone. Actually, it's good morning in in most regions, it's good morning. So we are about to start the October Executive Roundtable, where we will be discussing um, work conditions and organizational excellence in work conditions. My name is Alicia J Alexander, MSL, a Master of Science in Leadership, student of Grand Canyon University in doctoral studies, organizational leadership as well. We have as guests Lisa Birnesser, and she is a coach. I don't have your bio, but I'm going to wing it from what I remember. Unless you want to join in and then announce yourself.
So I am a self-care strategist and mindset mentor for women who are coaches, creatives, and consultants. And I specialize in helping women get off the cycle of burnout.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And we also have Anna Kallschmidt. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
You actually did, yes. That's rare.
With the name of Alicia, Alicia, I tried to pronounce everybody's name correctly because I know how it feels. So, Anna, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm an industrial organizational psychologist, and I research the unwritten rules of work for the working class and neurodivergence. And I look at intersections of race and gender with both of those identities. So I look at the invisible barriers in workplaces that individuals run into as they try to move up in their career, and also how it has organizational outcomes for the organization as well.
Oh, beautiful. That is wonderful. Well, we are in for an hour's talk, and I hope you as an audience can receive value from our discussion. The first question is, let's talk about work conditions, current work conditions. In the United States, we have a wonderful administration. However, some people currently are on furlough. How do we overcome situations like that, being in a situation where it's not under your control, but you have to live through it? What do you think, ladies?
That's a really difficult thing because it's actually their income that isn't present, and how, it's a question of basic survival and needs at this point. So it's really difficult to have the resources to be able to supplement that at this time, unless they had something to fall back on.
Yeah, that's a difficult question because the furlough isn't really up to any of the government employees who aren't congressional members.
Mhm.
Right. So, and there's inherently, I look at social class, there's inherently major class differences there. The only people still getting paid right now are Congress. And it's their responsibility to do their job. And so I have friends, I've lived in the DC area for a while. I have friends who are like, I have some savings, this is fine for a little while. But then a lot of federal employees, as much as there's been talk the past year about how much money federal employees make, I mean, the people who take out the trash at National Park Service, the people who clean the buildings, the federal buildings, et cetera, like they are not paid very high wages, right? So they can't last as long. And then you add other confounding factors like just being a single parent, for example, and that's not going to go as far either. Or a lot of people in the DC area, both parents are federal. So even if they had two incomes, then they don't. So it's really tricky. And normally the Fed is very rigid about what you can and can't do on a furlough, like what types of employment you can seek in the meantime. And so if that is something someone's going through, I encourage you to look into maybe and consult like the federal labor unions on what you can do if you need to, even if it's like working at CVS or something, because there are certain types of approved versus not approved employment, from my understanding. And now there's a lot of, obviously there's been constant court cases the past year on what is not legal with federal employees. So I think that's a big part of the anxiety is just because it's legal or it doesn't mean it's going to happen. Right. So, as things get out of control and we have less and less trust with our leaders, both we see that in business and in politics. It's not Einman, this something trust barometer that they do globally. It's like falling for leadership.
Oh,
And
wow.
as people lose trust, I think they do rely more on their own intuition and their own coping, really,
Yeah.
because there isn't a system in place that we feel confident in right now.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I used to live in the Washington area. I was not an employee of the government, but it seems as if, excuse me, as if there's a trickle down experience because if the higher people are not generating an income, it affects everybody in that atmosphere. From retail shops to sanitation to just about everything gets affected by a furlough, but you still have to live. So it's challenging. And since I'm about 8 hours removed from the Washington area, northward, I'm saying serious prayers for them and hoping that this week gets resolved very soon.
Yes.
Next question. Would either one of you care to share about your platform, where it comes to work conditions and organizational excellence?
Sure, I can. So my entire body of work is on looking at what are the cultural norms that we just consider professionalism, that we just assume everybody knows. But that is a cultural mismatch for a lot of people, actually. And it's considered so normal that it's not even written down until someone violates it. And then it's, why didn't you know how to do this? That's so unprofessional.
Mhm.
And people are like, I didn't know it was. And I'm sure Lisa can attest to with coaching women that who's held to the unwritten rules and the consequences of them is not equally distributed, right? So I mean, we just mentioned the government. Let's be real. Elon Musk having we don't even know how many baby mamas does not have the same reputation as if anyone on this call did, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're just
Right.
different standards. And that's not an unwritten rule. That's just a silly example, right? But the unwritten rules I look at are things like the indirect communication that is expected in a lot of corporate environments.
Mm-hmm.
That's not normal for a lot of people, especially from working class backgrounds where in blue collar jobs you have to be very direct, especially for people from a lot of African and Latin American cultures that are just more direct. And so these little norms that when we run these DEI efforts or we run these culture efforts, we don't even question the foundation that everything else is built on. And then we're like, well, we hung a rainbow flag out and it didn't fix everything. And it's like, well, frankly, no shit, right? If you didn't even talk about the communication norms, if you're not understanding each other, then like representation is important, but the flag alone is not going to change that. So that's a
Exactly.
lot of what my work it looks at is who knows these rules, what's the impact of not knowing them, and how is it impacting the business? Because just with indirect communication alone, businesses in the US are estimated to have, I don't remember the exact billions of dollars, but I know it was 2.5 times of what the US businesses paid in taxes last year that they spent on miscommunications. That's
Wow.
wild, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we
Totally.
just don't talk about it. We're like, okay, whatever, we'll put the flag up and like we'll have a 1 hour talk on it and we're great. But that doesn't change that you're spending a lot of money, people not understanding each other, having to start projects over, having delays, etc.
Right.
I understand that, and Anna, and just to case in point, Johnny Taylor, who is the CEO of SHRM, Society of Human Resource Management, as a SHRM member myself, although I'm kind of owing my dues, so I'm kind of like a back burner right now. Um, he discusses in the United States alone, there's a 1 billion act of instability in the workplace.
Oh, yeah. We're notorious for that. I just gave a whole course on workplace bullying because that's not illegal here. And I mean, there's definitely a business impact of that. I talk about that in a section of my book that's coming out because you can't get your work done when someone's harassing you. But
Yes.
white collar bullying is usually very subtle. Like 90% of the time, it's the very subtle things that undermine. And so we think of a bully as someone punching you in the face. And
Mhm.
that does happen, unfortunately, but it's very rare. But it's those
Mhm.
other things like sabotaging someone's work or taking
Yes.
for their work or starting a rumor mill about them or all those things that we talk about like mean girls
Mhm.
happens in white collar workplaces all the time, even between men. And
Mhm.
so it's all of those little things that um, in the US being so like meritocracy and we're tough and we have more guns than people, right? We hear bullying and it's like, oh, well, get over it. Get over it. It's like, cool, get over that you're losing money on it.
Yeah.
That's what I tell them. Get
Because
over
it
that you're
takes
losing money on it. Like if that's all you care about, it's
right.
still not working for you.
Because
So,
just one act of instability in the workplace takes 1.5 hours to overcome. So how much productivity are we losing when we can't come to what I call in my fourth pillar, workplace forgiveness, looking at each other with emotional intelligence and offering a peaceful environment where everyone can engage, whether, whatever status they have.
mhm, mhm,
Yeah, if you think about, the bullying and the impact of microaggressions on retention, that's women are 3 times more likely to think about quitting because because who they're fending off the bias. How can they engage with other people? How can they engage in their work? How can they still feel connected if someone's being aggressive towards them?
Mhm.
mhm,
It's almost as if emotional intelligence doesn't give way in certain circumstances, or it's not felt enough in order to bring about change in the environment. It's a difficult thing.
mhm. Yeah, we seem to be moving backwards on that. I mean, I think there was a campaign towards emotional intelligence where that was more accepted. And now we have a lot of usually Silicon Valley leaders saying like empathy is a weakness, right? And
Mhm.
that's a giant step backward from the progress we're making. And I do think a lot of that is gender driven, because there's a lot of talk now about women outperforming men. And the sad thing is, with how we raise boys don't develop emotional intelligence in the same way because they're penalized for it. And
Mhm.
Right.
so then they don't do as well in leadership. It usually shows women are more effective leaders. And I love what Dr. Tomas Chamorro Premuzic says is it's not that women are biologically inherently better, which is what men hear when they say that. It's
Mhm.
that we have so many barriers for women. And he just focuses on women, but there are barriers for other groups too
Mhm.
that only the best get through.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, there's a lot of mediocrity that gets through and doesn't perform well. Shocker. And so he makes the campaign, which I would be honest, I agree with, that if we focused more on competence and task performance and such, actually we'd have much more diverse leadership. Because for all the
Mhm.
hemming and hawing over DEI and men are being left behind, the C-suite has not changed. It
No.
is still predominantly male, pale, and like multi-generations of wealth, right? So what changed was the shop floor,
Mhm.
and we've weaponized that to be like, no, we have to shut out all the other efforts, right? When the power never really shifted. Power never really shifted. So that's
Mm.
I think a lot of that is obviously because of my research. I think a lot of that is because we fall for unwritten rules, we fall for charisma, we fall for charming, we call for bias on who we think is smart, and then we're like, oh, he was an idiot. Let's give him a golden parachute and get him out of here and let's just do it all over again.
Mhm.
And it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I agree with your perspective, Anna. Here's the challenge though. If we're doing it all over again, how do we overcome the new circumstances? Are we inviting more instability in the workplace, knowing that instability in the workplace causes harm? Or are we going to allow employees to go out on their own and set up their own shop, create new revenue streams for them in a way that says, okay, you may have done well here, but you can do better on your own. Not that they have the right to tell you that, but through their actions, that's what they're saying. So how do we handle that?
well, one of the things that I wanted to say is that the fact that there is this disconnection with engagement, there's also a disconnection of a very important part of resilience, which is self-compassion. And how do you extend self-compassion in a workplace where you're not being trusting or being trusted? And that's, I think, a bigger part of resilience than it is pushing through something and being in a space of creating that burnout and that disconnection, which disrupts everything within the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was just thinking last night, in relation to your question about are people going to start their own business? I think we're already seeing an increase in that. And it's interesting to me to see this push among corporate, which has been going on for at least a decade, this very open push towards a gig economy. And I remember that being really scary 10 years ago. And obviously now I'm self-employed, so I'm like, okay. I think I wonder how it will go with the biggest threat, I feel like, for people not thriving in a gig economy is that Americans don't have universal health care. So somebody with disabilities or someone who's like fighting cancer or whatever is not going to have that option. So that is my main concern. And I was kind of ha-haing to myself last night. I was like, it's such a Americans don't have universal health care for many reasons, but under the ideology that it doesn't fit with capitalism. But what does fit with the ideology of capitalism is reducing your payments on that you don't have to pay for your employees' health care, the part of it, so you want them to be gig workers. And so I was like, wouldn't it be funny if we went like full circle and because of this capitalism requiring that Americans are actually if we're going to do this, we're going to have universal health care, y'all. Like that's just how it's going to have to be.
Right.
And wouldn't that be like an odd, which would be like the most American thing ever to be like, we didn't do this the other way. We made our own weird ass path here. So because I
Right.
hear without it that, like I said, like, I mean, I saw somewhere like almost 1 in 3 Americans have cancer now in their lifetimes. Like, you're gonna need healthcare. So I
Yeah.
wonder how that's gonna come about.
That's an interesting thing because my background is in accounting. That's how I got through my undergraduate school, and my master's is in health human resources. So that's how I completed my master's degree. So combining those two, I had the opportunity to work for one of the conglomerate health care organizations in Rhode Island where I live. And it was a wonderful experience. I'm not knocking it at all. But at the same time, I would have liked to see option, or I still would like to see particular care being served to people who are legitimately in America. And no matter the service, no matter the heritage of the person, that they can receive that kind of health care that they need. I'm not saying go socialistic, but at the same time, because we do believe in capitalism, but at the same time, it should be something that workers have to be concerned about consuming most of their income.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah. I mean, I loved being in human resources and healthcare, but when I see the income generation for the employers or employees, but the public having to pay such an amount for services, it's puzzling, to say the least. Did I say it clearly enough? I don't know. I'm just puzzled by the whole picture experientially.
About how much healthcare costs?
The cost, and then asking for the certain amount of income from the services that are provided
For healthcare?
for healthcare.
Yeah, I mean, we have the most expensive healthcare in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you are employed, it is still a very large chunk of your money. I'm in Europe now, and so it's a very different system.
You.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the UK, so they pay a little more in taxes, but then they're not getting anything out of their check every week either. So
Right.
it really just depends on how it's set up, because we have the most expensive healthcare in the world, but we also have, like you said, you'd like to see healthcare, everybody treated differently. I mean, the same. We still have like very high maternal mortality rates, right? Especially among Black and Indigenous women, some of the highest in the world. So I'm no healthcare expert, so I can only really speak to it from my experience as an entrepreneur. Is it's very difficult. You can have like these little packages that they make to like have some kind of accident insurance, right? But then every time I've tried to get something, even if I've been paying for that insurance, it's so hard to get anything. Especially when you're a woman in childbearing years, because they're like, oh, nope, don't get too expensive.
Yeah.
Also, why is the birth rate so low? But don't get too expensive.
Right.
So I can only really speak to it from that standpoint. Yeah.
And when we're looking at some people's insurance being raised up to 75% come the beginning of the year, and pre-existing conditions go backwards, that's like a whole different story. If unless you have a spouse with insurance from a 9-to-5 job, then I would be out of luck.
I didn't meet another woman who wasn't married and on their spouse's health insurance for over a year of my first year on my own, because that was something I would ask. I'd be like, so which health program are you using? They're like, oh, I'm on my husband's. And I was like, gonna have to get one of those. Yeah.
What, the healthcare or the husband?
Both. Apparently one's how you get the other.
Yeah, I mean, so there's all of those implications and things hovering over without any kind of supportive backup. What's the next plan? And so there's many people that are going to be doing without healthcare, and that's an issue.
Well, wow. There's no word for it. It's interesting because it's so many challenges that we see in the current economy. And this is just the first year of the new administration. So what are we expecting for the next 3 years?
Huh. I mean, I don't think anybody knows, including the current administration, what the next 3 years are going to look like with day to day. I think, a big thing in the future of work right now is AI. How is that going to go? Because that's a big part of the layoffs in the private sector are due to federal funding being cut, because a lot of people don't talk about the private sector relies a lot on that too. And then, but there's also really the push very hard to replace employees with AI. When we've seen multiple reports showing that it's not going as easily as they thought it would, right? And I'm a big, in my work on unwritten rules of work, I think the social differences, the unwritten rules are only going to get amplified as, because, AI isn't totally useless. It can be a great tool. And, I've been saying for years before generative AI, I've been saying, nobody's ever brought me in as a consultant because nobody knew how to use Excel or Python. But they have brought me in to say, I have these people who are great at using Excel and Python, but why can't they work together? Or why aren't they using it on things I need to do to actually drive results? And so AI is great at helping you figure out the problem with your code. Like I saw, I've done a lot of statistics, but coding in R and such, I have a visual disability. So it's always like, well, you got the period wrong or the dash wrong or whatever. That I love that AI can be like, what is the problem? And they're like, oh, it's this. Here's your new code, right? But that's not going to solve the other problems.
Right.
And one of the unwritten rules in my work is the unwritten rule of compliance, expecting nobody to disagree with you, even if you ask them a question. So you appear to be like the egalitarian leader, like, tell me what you think. But the unwritten rule is, but it better agree with my idea, right? And the MIT released what was, a viral study that 95% of AI implementation has not increased revenues for companies. And one of the examples it made public was one of the leaders at a global company who made this whole rollout. Of course, they didn't say with what, because that would be identifiable. This whole rollout for a global, and he consulted nobody else but the AI. No other feedback but the AI. And do you think that went well?
I doubt it.
I'm
Really
confident
doubt it.
the answer is no.
And that's pretty much automating the unwritten rule of compliance, right? Nobody else gave feedback because unless you tell your AI to disagree with you, and you're also assuming that it has the expertise that you're in and that it understands the holistic impact on your organization and how things interconnect, it can't tell you what maybe a fellow executive could have told you. Right? Or hopefully multiple focus groups across levels of your employees could have told you, and in different cultures around the globe, on how that was going to go.
Right.
And so if you have a trash culture, AI is just going to magnify this, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
Agreed. There has to be, they can apply all of the AI that they could possibly put into a company. However, there still has to be a human factor to translate. How does that work in your business, or how does that work in leadership? Without that, then it's an epic fail.
Yeah. I'm startled how many people still say AI is objective. Startled.
It's since we're talking about AI, I write for a living as well, and I have about probably 9 ebooks on my LinkedIn profile, so anybody's welcome to view them. But I just did one on AI, leadership, and the 5 pillars of organizational excellence. The 5 pillars of organizational excellence is very much a workable framework of how do you retain your employees, circle of influence relationships strategically. And so combining those in one sentence as the subject matter was very, what's the word? Exposing, knowing that we need to keep the human experience even with AI. It's not going to replace the human experience. And I know you just shared a little bit why it's not going to replace the human experience. So my recommendation to leadership, and knowing that I have a master's in leadership, is to say, remember your people and treat your people with respect, appreciation, and value, because you need your people. From the person who checks out the trash sanitation engineering crew to CEO, everybody in your organization is important.
Mhm.
And so AI should never be the replacement tool.
I agree. I mean, I'm a little pessimistic about the listening, but I think we have a tendency to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
Um, I do also wonder if everybody's laid off from AI, who they think they're going to sell things to.
Mm.
But
Mhm.
yeah,
I,
got to
I
think more than one quarter ahead.
AI and advertising. Whoa. I mean, yeah, they can duplicate, but they can't generate the emotional part of it. It's so mechanical. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but that's my that's my sentiment.
I do wonder, I mean, I think maybe it'll be generations that come after us who are just so normalized to AI that they'll feel differently about it, but for me, if I see an AI generation of a product, I don't know that that product is real.
Mm.
You know, and people make the compare, they're like, well, did you ever think like Naomi Campbell was real? Like that it was gonna look like that on you? And it's like, no, but I still knew like the pants existed.
Yeah.
You know, like I knew they were a
Right.
tangible fabric. I
Um,
knew if it wasn't Naomi Campbell, I could figure that out, right? But with so
Mhm.
many scams online and such, if I see an ad that clearly isn't even a real item, then I'm kind of like, okay. All right. You know,
Missing a thumb or a pinky or
right. Like, I mean, now AI is good enough to where I could buy a program that could help me generate an image of a pretty person in a cute pair of jeans, but I don't have a pair of jeans to sell you.
Right.
You know, so, but I wonder, you know, will Generation Alpha, who's like under age 12 right now, will that just be so normal to them that they won't care? I think is what a lot of the tech companies are banking on right now.
Mhm.
But we also have seen over and over again, like the tech bubbles pop. Like I was writing recently on my Substack about, you know, the WeWork disaster. Like so much of that was somebody with a lot of charisma convinced a bunch of other dudes that his company was worth way more money than it was.
Mm.
There was no real clear criteria, right? The dot-com boom, similar problem, bunch of inflated
Mhm.
stuff. So will we
Mhm.
go the way of this is an AI bubble, which is what everyone seems to think is happening?
Mhm.
Or will people just become so normalized to it that they'll still buy the jeans?
Mm. That's a good question. I like that question. Yeah.
I mean, women
Because
won't because we still got to try on the jeans,
right.
exactly.
but the men might be fooled. They'll be like 36, 38, got it. Must be nice. So,
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's if you see that, it's like that doesn't appeal to me.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
but
mhm.
Yeah, that's interesting. Um, so getting into more of our work experiences, is there anything, Lisa, that you would like to share that we can talk about in the organizational excellence perspective?
I mean, I think that as women, we are, you know, I have, you know, I'll be honest, I've been out of corporate for 30 years. I work with people that have been in corporate, but I don't think things have really changed. We still
Mm,
don't make as much money. We still, I don't see anything that has changed. There's still,
mm,
um, you know, I had a leader stand up in a company one time and said, "These are your regional rehab directors, and use them, and when you're done wearing them out, we'll just get you new ones." And that's when I stood there and woke up and said, oh my God, I don't know that it's changed that much. Um,
Mhm.
that there's so that level of disrespect, but I know what is forward is that women are juggling, whether they're in corporate leaders, they're juggling um trying to be all to their families or support, and they're also trying to be all for their job. And that level of exertion triggers all sorts of things like perfectionism. It triggers the ability to, look at situations with a clear head without taking on a level of chronic stress. And it's rampant. Like
Mhm.
hustle culture is rampant. And having gone through my own experience with that myself,
Mhm.
it doesn't um there have to be a lot of lifestyle changes. And can that level of support happen? And so that's why I've really focused on helping women to get out of that cycle of burnout. And
Mhm.
that's what I've devoted, my life to.
How's it working? With your clients, are they making progress? Are things happening so that they can alleviate that stress?
There are some. There are
Mhm.
some that step forward and are proactive with it. They know that they're going to scale up their business, or they know that they're going to um, grow their business in some way, and so they're preparing for it,
Okay.
which is the best thing that they can do. Is to say, I want to make sure that I'm first forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a generation that I've worked with that is shifting and changing in that.
Great. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
So
Anna, can I ask you the same question?
Well, I had a response for Lisa, but can you remind me what your question was? I got caught up in her answer.
Well, go with the response for Lisa then.
Oh, I was going to fervently agree that we're doing the same shit over and over again. And in one chapter in my book on the unwritten rules of indirect communication, I intentionally start with an old example from the 80s, and then through the book, talk through that chapter, we get to like 2019. Right? Because, and my point being, and I tell them at the beginning of the chapter, I know this is an example you've heard of, right? I know this was a long time ago.
Mhm.
This was intentional
Yeah.
because we haven't learned from it. And I think what drives me crazy, especially in the age of everybody has a podcast, is this all of these leadership podcasts people listen to and they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then they don't do anything with it.
mhm.
Everybody wants to
Mm.
say they're the first, they're leading it, but wait till somebody else takes all the risk. That by definition is not leading. That doesn't mean you have to lead in everything. Like sometimes you do need to be that's not my area. That's not worth it to me. I need to see that's somebody else's the ball's in their court. That's fine. Just don't fool yourself into thinking leadership is listening to a podcast hyping you up and then doing the same thing we've been doing for 40 years.
Right.
And then expecting different results.
Mm-hmm.
So and we're really addicted to like this, the AI, the new technology, while changing none of the social factors.
Mm.
None of them. And then we're like, and like we said, the technology only enhances the social factors for better and for worse.
Yeah.
So I was agreeing with her and with the burnout with women. I have a question.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm reading this book right now called How Women Rise.
Mm.
And forgive me, I forget the authors. They're both leadership coaches. And they had an interesting claim in there that I think I need to ask someone a little older than me. And they said that like the expectations for moms have shifted. That when they were younger, I think they're like maybe Gen X baby boomers. Birthday parties were about the cake and having your friends over, and that's pretty much it. And now they notice a trend of like mom has to do so much more. There's like the handmade costumes and the there may be a, you know, a clown or a pony or whatever. And so like the same thing that women are doing at work, being expected to always say yes and overperform, they're also doing in their personal lives.
Yes.
And that this is driving major burnout because they're very afraid to not just miss a soccer game, but a soccer practice. And
Mm-hmm.
when there were more stay-at-home moms, maybe you could do that. Though even then, like, especially with multiple children, you don't have to go to a practice, right? But I was wondering because I'm from a very small town, rural area, very poor county in Florida. So like birthday parties were like cake and like the little cone hats, and that's pretty much it, right? But I was curious what y'all thought of that because not being from a city and being a millennial, I didn't really have a comparison.
Well, I can share from a grandmother's perspective. Yeah, I am, even though I look like, I'm a millennial myself. But my daughter and my son both have one daughter each. So I have two beautiful granddaughters. My first granddaughter just had her birthday yesterday. And my heritage is called Trinidadian, so I'm a Trini. So my first granddaughter is Trini Irish. And
Okay.
so the challenge there is the parents are not together. So we don't see her as often as I would like to.
Mm,
My second granddaughter is Trini Portuguese. And so I live with my second granddaughter and her parents. My daughter recently married. So living in the house with my second granddaughter, I'm witnessing as a grandmother that is the parties have changed because her birthday's coming up November 6th. She wants to take her to Chuck E. Cheese, make sure the activities and everything, all the design, the favors, all the decorations are to other people's likings. Yes, her likings first, but other people's likings. So it's
mm,
not just, you know, cake and ice cream and have a cute little hat on anymore. It's
mm,
have activities and bring everybody in and make sure everybody's having fun and just enjoying themselves. It's almost like wedding reception for kids. That's how I see it as the grandmother. And I mean, I love both my granddaughters with my heart. One is 10, who just turned 10, and the other one is turning 6. Um, but the work that goes into them, that the parents feel they need to do in order to have them happy,
mhm,
I didn't know about that.
mhm,
Yeah, it's I always go by how you do anything is how you do everything.
mm,
Mm,
And if you're overperforming in one place, you're overperforming everywhere. And
mm,
there's so much um, pressure put on externalization of making
mm,
things look better or making things present better that there is this huge lack of self-care
mm.
and actually giving back to yourself. But if as long as the pressure of is being placed externally, that's how it may show up.
Yeah.
mm,
I think as a grandparent watching my daughter and my son, I'm kind of distant from my son, but like I said, I live with my daughter and her family. And I can attest to the lack of self-care. Only because it says there's a standard at this new generation that you have to be the best at every last detail,
mm,
and where does spirituality come into it? Only if you have time. If you go a couple of times, a couple of Sundays in church, that's acceptable because you had time. Otherwise, you know, it's just lackadaisical in spirituality, but at the same time, emphasis on what are you doing to please others. That's what I'm witnessing. You got to take care of yourself first, and it begins with spirituality, whether it's an affirmation, whether it's an inspiration. You have to take care of your mentality first, and then you can please others.
Can't pour from an empty cup, as they say.
You know, and I think it all also, as a bigger viewpoint, is that we're not aligned with what's most important to us.
Yeah, I agree.
That's every value, is every boundary, is every decision. And so unless you're aware of what's most important to you, it's those type of coping mechanisms definitely are front forward.
I took some time off almost 3 years ago, and unheard of in America, and it was such a privilege to be able to do it. I took a month off because I only had 2 weeks PTO, and so I took unpaid leave. So again, a privilege. And I did the Camino de Santiago. I don't know if y'all have heard of that. It's
Oh, wow.
it was my second one. I did one when I was very young, and then I did one a few years ago. And like, there's something meditative
for those
about.
who don't know.
It's a pilgrimage to the alleged tomb of St. James, but it's open to any religion or not. And so you just walk every day between these hostels, either usually across Spain. This one was up Portugal. And I was like, I'm so burned out. I don't even want to plan a vacation, right? I just want to get up and walk, and like, you have something to wear, something to watch, something to dry. You really simplify your life. And because I was doing this, I had a lot of time to journal and just think. And I did figure out more of what I wanted my ideal day. Didn't have like all the answers, but I was able to structure like, what does my ideal day look like? And once I had that, it made it a lot easier to say no to business opportunities, to what my friends wanted to do. Like, I came back and I was like, okay, I don't need to do that freelance contract that's going to burn me out because it actually doesn't align with what I want to do. Right? I can do it. The extra money could be nice, but that's also time away from doing something else that I actually want to do, which could be another avenue for income, right? Or that my friends, that was like, I'm just getting too old to go to a bar multiple times a week, or not even but like, I want to do something else, right? Like, I want to learn a second language. I want to do all these other things. So like, can we do something else? Right. And having that clarity is really hard when you're on the hamster wheel, when you can't take that time off. But once you get it, it makes the hamster wheel. You don't want to get back on it. You're like, yeah, that sucks, and that's actually not getting me anywhere.
Exactly. What a cool opportunity you had to do that pilgrimage. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's for anybody who can, I definitely recommend it. Or something similar, right? A lot of people are like, why'd you go to another country to walk? Like, if that's not your thing, find something else, right?
That reminds me of Pilgrim's Progress. Are you familiar with that book?
No.
I have my dad's version of that from the 1920s.
Yes. The Pilgrim's Progress is about a pilgrim or a voyager who meets different characters along the way of getting to the ultimate city. So I like it because what I'm witnessing as being an entrepreneur is that there are different characters that I meet along the way, personalities, just people in general. Some may offer added value, and others may give you something to think about, which in a way is kind of added value again. But you can learn something along the way to get into the ultimate city of whatever it is, debt freedom, luxury living, whatever that city is for you. There are personalities that you'll encounter along the way. So when we consider work conditions and organizational excellence, how many characters along the way do we encounter, and do we really experience that added value, or is it something that personalities that we find may be a distractor from getting to your ultimate city?
I look at those characters as teachers.
Mm,
Um, and am I learning the same lesson again, or am I learning a different lesson?
okay.
You know, the people that I come across or the situations that I've entered.
I noticed something in my work. We know there's a lot of research showing women do this. There's
Mhm.
less research on the work ethic value is a very strong among the working class, blue collar. Like there's a big sense of pride in the Protestant work ethic, which is like the foundational ideology of capitalism as well.
Mhm.
And something that shocks people when they move up into more white collar work is that a lot of them aren't hard workers. Not the people in power, like they know how to make their money work for them.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Right? That's part of the why people want to get there, right? Is to have those investments and to move on. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But
Mhm.
something that I see a lot of people who are first generation professionals do, particularly those who are women, is burn themselves out working their ass off and never getting any recognition because they just when the characters are talking about come in and ask for more things, they say yes. They never say no. And they think that by not bragging about it, because that's another working class value is humility, that
Mhm.
it will get noticed. And it doesn't.
Yeah.
Especially in the era of we're cutting managers, cutting managers, cutting managers. So the few managers left are managing so many people
Mhm.
that they don't know your work for you. And so having to learn that is one of the unwritten rules of self-promotion.
Yes.
And women especially already don't do that. And if they do, they're perceived negatively. So you have to do it very carefully.
You have to be assertive instead of um what
Aggressive.
aggressive. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's another
But I was
unwritten rule.
thinking of a different word. I was thinking more impotent instead of aggressive, because it's okay. So a male can say, "Hey, well, my company and my team," but if a woman says, "My company and my team," how are we perceived?
Mhm. Yeah.
So we gotta, if we're perceived negatively, we must find a more assertive way to say the same word, my company and my team. We achieved such and such for first quarter or second quarter, or whatever you want to say it is. But in a more assertive way so that it's understood that my company and my team did such and such.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a clear difference in looking for that external validation.
Mm.
And let me lost her. Um, so there's that clear difference in having external validation and looking for that, because that is the difference. I mean, I had depression era parents. And so it was always that's what I was taught, was external validation. And boy, I learned that really doesn't work. And that the things have to come from within. So, um, yeah, I mean, I think it's all how you embody it and then present it.
Well, let me ask you this, put this on the table. When a male does it, is it seen as something that is bravado, or is it something that it's like, okay, let's just quietly do something to help him understand that we are a team here, and as such, we wish you would use verbalize in a different manner. Which one happens that most often? Anna?
I mean, the research would show us that particularly white men are usually evaluated based on what the perception of their future ability is, their potential.
Mm.
Everybody else is evaluated on what they've already done. And this is part of what I was talking about earlier, that like the women who get through the rigor are usually excellent because they've had to prove it over and over and over and over again. While if somebody's rated on, well, we really like him and he's charismatic and he has potential, there's more room for error, right? And I was actually I was talking to a coaching client earlier today, and she was like, I don't want to get it wrong. Like, I know a lot of really wonderful white men. And I was like, but are the really competent ones, are they the ones who are in power? And she was like, no. The problem is what we evaluate as leadership, right? Because even a very competent white man, especially if he's, working class, or maybe he's autistic or whatever, if he's going to say, what is going on here? He's going to break those unwritten rules. He's not going to defer to the power. He's not going to get promoted. Because the system rewards bravado. The system is rewarding charisma. And that's, I remember what it's the Edelman Trust Barometer is dipping. And not just America, in many countries, because what we see as leadership is not what is actually effective. And we get that from what we see in media. We get that from our own biases. But I think while we have systemic changes to be made, I think something that we can do immediately is start questioning, what are the behaviors that we reward? What are the behaviors, like what makes us give someone politically it's a vote, but I also mean like a vote in the organization. Like if you are in selection and hiring, if you are choosing to follow someone and support them, even like followers on social media, because that gives a certain level of power and visibility as well. Is this person doing good? Can they show it to you? Or are they just pretty and charismatic? And I mean pretty to apply to men as well, right? Because that's, once we give people platforms, even if you're hate commenting, you're boosting their platform, then they have power. And again, the cycle repeats of people who talk a big game and can't go through.
Yeah. Wow. That's the reality of things. Talk a big game and don't follow through.
And we need to question as women and any of the other marginalized groups I'm talking about, we need to question what it is about ourselves we're afraid of being proud of, right? Like, why do we feel like we need to be small? Are we hiding?
Yes.
And we can also question, why am I giving this person my attention in an attention economy when they're really mediocre? They're just loud and entertaining. And maybe very attractive, because that always helps, right?
Right.
Well, it's why are we giving our power away when you talk about that? It's like, why are we handing over our power in those behaviors of people pleasing and everything that we talked about earlier? Yeah, that's so true. It's like, when is it going to break?
It is. I think it is breaking.
Yeah, that's the good way.
I mean, a lot of people are out of work. Things are very expensive, and like the trust globally is falling in a lot of countries. So I think it is breaking. It's hard to watch the ship sink when you're on it.
Right. Agreed.
Yeah. I think that there's a factor of necessary salvation, and I'm wondering if the next generation will bring it, or is there going to be a sense of perdition in order to change things?
I think I don't know that it'll be a generational difference, because while generations live through different things, and it certainly impacts our behavior, if the system rewards the psychopaths, the narcissists, the dark triad of leadership, there's always someone in any group, including generations, who is willing to sell their soul for power. And if that's what's rewarded, then the narcissistic psychopathic boss will find that person and will promote them to their place, right? It's only going to be if we collectively together say, I'm not following that. I'm not giving
Yeah.
that my time. I'm not spending money in your company if you're going to keep doing this.
Mhm.
Regardless of generation and group, I think that is the way. And that's what we see in revolutions around the world in history of, the French Revolution is probably the one we think about the most, of when the people saw Versailles and said, we've had enough, right?
Mhm.
We're not going to eat cake,
Right.
Right.
that is when change really happens, but we have to collaborate for that.
Yeah.
Because
So,
there's always going to be a narcissist
Mm.
working their way through. And the problem is we fall for it. We are like, they're
The
so
charm.
charming. They make me feel seen when they do that love bombing, which doesn't just happen in romantic relationships. It happens at work too.
Exactly.
And then they take over and we're like, shit.
Mm.
Toxic relationship
Like, oh, for
with
that
my
again.
I fell for it again, right? I had this terrible organizational experience. They were so nice to me. I worked overtime because I loved them so much. And now I'm in another abusive relationship and
Mm.
my employment's tied to it. So no personal
So,
experience there.
well, let me ask you this question. Can my perspective of the 5 pillars of organizational excellence help to bring about change? Can neuroleadership, neuromanagement, authentic appreciation of your employees, workplace forgiveness, or organizational trust together help to bring about this change?
I do think those are important pillars, and I think there's something that a narcissist can't do, or a psychopath or a Machiavellist, because those are the dark triad, right? And that's what we see disproportionately in positions of power because they want it.
Mhm.
It's very authentically working with your employees and empowering them and distributing credit and building trust are not capable. They're not capable of that. So I think we did maybe consider those pillars when we were doing our succession planning and our promotions, that we'd have to weed out some psychopaths. But it's most effective if you also evaluate their followers. Because a narcissist or a psychopath knows how to switch to kiss up to power and to kick down. So I would say with your 5 pillars, evaluate the manager you're thinking of promoting, ask their people how they rank on those 5 pillars, because that's going to be more honest than what the person says about themselves.
I like that.
Good
I'll take
point.
your advice. Yes, Lisa?
That's a good point. Absolutely, because they're the ones that have experienced that shift in behavior.
The followers have the ramification of their behavior. Yeah.
Yeah, they're the ones who know, and they're like, wow, we should promote Rachel. She has such great ideas. When they're like, that was my idea. Right. So
Yeah,
Oh.
absolutely. Well, ladies, we had a great conversation. Any parting words to the audience, Lisa?
I mean, the biggest thing is self first and stepping into who you really are and having that support to make that transition. Because then things sometimes will begin to fall away.
Anna, any parting words for the audience?
I always like to tell people you're not crazy. If you're seeing something at work and nobody's talking about it, but it is making you exhausted, you feel awful, you're not, you are constantly anxious, you're not crazy. The unwritten part is how it survives. And so, make space for it, acknowledge it. Maybe don't acknowledge it out loud at work, but you be only with people you trust, right? Because and that's a big part of why, like, I've started like a school community for people to meet each other as well, because you're not crazy. that it is unspoken gives it power. So speak about it. But of course, you know, if this is your source of income and unless you have money to risk getting laid off, speak about it elsewhere until you have something else lined up.
Wonderful.
Good.
I remember, Anna, that you said you have a book coming out. Can you share that with the audience, or still what's going on?
Yeah, so I leave tomorrow for what I'm calling my pre-book tour, which is a vacation, because I again have not taken time off, Lisa, and I know I need to take care of myself before I'm in the whirlwind. So my partner and I are leaving tomorrow for a vacation, but when we come back, I should have the book available for pre-sale in about a month, and it's every chapter is on the unwritten rules of work. All 8 of them, and then it goes into case studies, real case studies of ways this is played out in business, the impact it's had. Most chapters have at least 2 or 3. There's only one that has like 1, and that's because it's on bullying, and it's very hard to get documentation on that in the US. But not all of the examples are US based, and there are recommendations for staff, leaders, and HR for each unwritten rule. And I'm neurodivergent myself. I like being very specific and tangible. So they're not fluffy. They're very tangible. And so that comes out in about a month. It's
What's the title?
The Unwritten Rules of Work for Social Class and Neurodivergent Identities. It's evidence-based. It's silly. It has cuss words in it. It's if you've seen any of my videos, it reads like I talk. So it has a lot of citations and it says fuck a few times. So if that's up your alley, we should get it.
I want a copy.
Sold in a month.
So Lisa, any new developments for your company?
I'm sorry?
Any new developments for your company?
I mean, the biggest thing is shifting out. I mean, I talk about burnout, but I want to talk about the solution for it. So I've really shifted and instead of being a coach, I've gone with a self-care strategist so that we can take a look at, let's look at the answers instead of sitting and swimming in the burnout. So that's been really refreshing.
Okay,
Love that.
beautiful.
Solution oriented.
For me, I'm part of an anthology that's coming out on November 4th. I'm trying to remember the name of the anthology, but I believe it's 5 of us who have written for it. And my part is the business, the 5 pillars of organizational excellence, from looking at it from a solopreneur to a corporate executive, and how we can make things acceptable and celebrate our employees and have great work conditions where it's sustainable and award-winning at the same time.
Awesome.
Congratulations to both of you. That's exciting.
And to you too, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Self-care strategy, I like that, because way too many of us are not doing that, from grandmother to newly employed people. It needs to be developed. So thank you, Lisa, for having that strategy.
Thank you.
And thank you, Anna, for your new book copy.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Well,
ladies,
it's been lovely chatting with y'all.
Yeah,
yes,
thank you so much.
For
it's
being
great
here
to meet you.
this afternoon. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.